We want you to grow in Christ at Covenant Church.
We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is the Thursday morning WGNS Roundtable on a day that I guess we're going to be expecting some rain. I always need that rain for the dry lawn. We have two guests here, two friends, two associates. I guess they're all one tied in two people. I initially want to introduce a gentleman that I've known for well over 12, 13 years, initially meeting him at Mount Little State. Dr. Brian Thomas. Brian, and you're now the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Williamson College in beautiful downtown Franklin with a facility in Smyrna. Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself. Of course, the world knows about you, but if the world has forgotten about Brian, born where, a little bit about Brian Thomas.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for having me on this show again. It's one of my favorite invitations that I get, and always a pleasure to be here. So born and raised in Middle Tennessee, in Smyrna, actually. My family.
You haven't moved too far, have you?
I haven't. Just out to East Tennessee for undergraduate. It is. But been here, born and raised my whole life. As far as education goes and career, I started off as an adjunct professor, worked my way up to tenure track professor through community colleges and public universities, and then the Lord called me out of secular higher education on over to Christian higher education, and so I've been at Williamson College now for about 5 years.
And a real inspiration, I must add.
Well, thank you very much, Bill.
And we have a young lady here that I had the pleasure and opportunity of meeting in a public speaking class at Williamson College last year, and not only an outstanding student, but she gave a presentation one evening that had everybody so riveted to word by word by word. And I'm going to introduce to you Rhonda Barnett. And Rhonda, first of all, a little bit about Rhonda. Born where? A little bit about Rhonda's life, and then we're going to hear the story of Rhonda Barnett.
So thank you for having me here.
Well,
I'm very excited.
Pleasure.
I'm from Shelbyville. I was born and raised there. Moved away a few times, but always came back home. We have, my husband and I, we have 8 children together. We're a blended family, and we have 5 grandchildren.
Wow.
So
you're too young to be a grandma.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm the fun one.
Does anybody, do you realize what Shelbyville's famous for?
No.
It's the pencil capital of the United States. They make more pencils.
Right.
So I guess they get the lead out of their lives in Shelbyville. Sorry about that. Start with the story however you want to share it. And I've got to express this to everybody who's listening. Listen closely and carefully for this story. This is a story you hope other parents and other people do not have to carry with them. But this is a story that reflects a certain element of life and how people take it, how people support themselves, how people lift themselves out of it. Each person has their own journey. So, start with the beginning.
So I'm going to start around June 2022. My husband and I, we had 5 children living at home. 3 had moved out on their own. They were living in Alabama. And we were also foster parents, and we had 5 foster children, 2 of those being medical fragile. So we had 10 kids at the home. It was kind of like a frat house.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's always awake, something's always breaking, and someone's always sick. So
Yes.
that's kind of how crazy it
And
was.
you want them all to be happy.
Yes, and it was fun. We had lots of fun, lots of challenges. We were in the hospital with our youngest foster daughter. She was having a major surgery. She was recovering. When we realized that our oldest daughter, who had been going through a divorce, Taylor, that we couldn't get in touch with her.
Her name was Taylor.
Her name was Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't get in touch with her. No one could find her. No one had heard from her. And our concerns grew even more when 3 days later she didn't show up for a court hearing. It was for custody of her baby.
Had you begun to call friends or neighbors?
Oh yes.
And nobody had seen her?
No one.
From her knew her?
No one had seen her anything. The following week went on, and Still no sign of her. We were finally able to file a missing persons report on July 8th, which was about 2 weeks after.
With which police department?
It was with Decatur.
In Alabama.
It started there. We kind of, at first, it took a while because we were kind of getting a runaround on which department wanted to file the missing persons.
And that's not uncommon when you go to file a missing persons in both small and large police departments. They say, well, give it a little bit of time.
Right.
She'll show up or what have you.
Right. She's an adult, you know, don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Well, we knew something was wrong. It was not her character for her not to be.
And you had
get in
your
touch.
fifth sense going too. Was there
Oh,
a
yeah.
sensing as a mother that it's just something ticking away that
Yes.
it's just not right?
Yes, so something.
And Brian, anytime you want to pop in, you can.
I was just going to ask, like during those initial stages, I'm sure that they did this, but were they checking like social media? Were they checking things like GPS, trying to locate her phone and where she was and those types of things?
No, no, they never would ping her phone because she was an adult. They said they didn't have an. So once the missing persons person was filed, then they, would set it out over social media and stuff like that, but they really didn't do anything. They would say that, it's okay. She's fine. She's just running. They would tell us that there were people that were calling in and saying that they were taking her from one location to another and dropping her off. So they're like, she's okay. We just have to get a step ahead of her. But they never could verify that she was at any of the locations that they were being told. They never could verify the source of the information that was coming in either.
I've seen before that sometimes when situations are going on like this, the family and their surrounding community will form their own search parties. Did you guys ever do anything like that?
So we did. We had a missing persons page set up on Facebook. I contacted the missing persons advocacy programs.
Okay.
But a lot of them will not go into Alabama and work with Alabama. I was not given reasons why they wouldn't, but a lot of them will not go in and
Okay.
help. So on Saturdays, we would all gather together and we would go hang missing persons flyers at every storefront that we could find. My daughter-in-law and I, we kind of became glued to social media, tracing every comment. Every time that a post was shared about her, we would read every comment that followed that, trying to chase any leads that we possibly could, because the police themselves weren't doing anything. And when we would give them leads, they would sit on them.
Is it a small police department in Decatur, would you say? That they basically are looking for barking dogs and speeding teenagers?
No, I think a lot of it is they have so much crime there.
Okay,
That
so this
maybe
was not a priority
this
for
was
them.
not a priority. And then with them thinking that everything was okay, it was definitely put on the back burner.
Before you go on, tell us a little bit about your daughter. Was she basically a very reliable, responsible? How old was she at this
She
time?
was 24.
24. Kind of walk us through for a moment or two as she was growing up. Was with the number of children you had, was she always helpful? Was she a loving child? Did she ever do anything that was irresponsible that might have triggered off any thought that this may have been the case this time? So kind of walk us through for a couple minutes about her growing up.
She was beautiful.
Okay.
She was full of personality.
You showed her pictures in class, and that you absolutely correct. Gorgeous, gorgeous.
Yes,
young
she
lady.
was a wonderful mom. She loved her baby so much. She was someone you could always count on. There would be times that if I needed someone or just for someone to talk to, I could call her up at any time. And
As a teenager, how was she?
she was a good kid.
Okay, so
She
she
was.
wasn't one of those teenagers that said, "Oh my gosh, you're 14 now. When can you be 20 in about 1 week?"
She was
That
a
was
daddy's
me.
girl.
Understand?
She was definitely a daddy's girl.
Okay.
She was amazing. She was such a fun person to be around. She always, to every gathering we had, she always just brought this light to her. Just.
And she'd
just
been
with her.
married how long before the divorce was instituted? would you say?
5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
Okay. Had she known
it's 4 or
the
5 years.
boy long before the marriage?
I would say about a year.
Okay.
Close to a year that they dated, roughly around there.
Please go on now with the story. I was just kind of creating a background, so
So-
we were learning to know the young lady as a real person, not a statistic or a number.
She was amazing. Everyone who
Gotcha.
ever met her just fell in love with her.
Okay.
Throughout the month of July, we continued basically doing our own search. We did hire a private investigator that was of huge help, and he would try to talk to the police department, to the investigator on the case, and to give them information, and they would kind of push him away.
Wow.
And wouldn't really listen to anyone. And you know, our PI tried to set up in-person interviews where we could go in and sit and talk and discuss everything, and they never were willing to set that up. It was the longest month ever. Her son's birthday fell in July, and we just knew that if...
How many children did she have?
She had one.
One, a son.
Precious
Okay.
baby boy. And we just knew...
His name?
Sawyer.
Sawyer, okay.
What
Yes.
birthday was that for him?
It was going to be his third birthday.
Wow.
Gotcha.
You can relate well to that, Brian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And we just knew that, you know, whatever was going on, it was her baby's birthday. And she was not the type of person who would ever walk away from her baby. I mean, she adored him with every bit of her being. Come his birthday, and there was still no Taylor.
Wow. Was she employed at the time of... Was she working?
She had worked, right before all this happened, she was working at a factory over there, but she had also been going to nursing school.
Okay.
She was going to get her nursing degree. She had worked as a CNA. She had a passion for helping others. She had gotten involved with a recovery program that met like one night a week because she loved going. They worked with depression because she did battle with depression with when the divorce started taking place and everything that was happening.
Going to school and
Yes.
working and raising a baby. And
Yes, it was. I mean, that's hard on anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone.
I don't know how you do it with 8 children.
Well, I don't either sometimes.
Yes.
We were doing not radio stations, but TV news stations, every newspaper that we could get in contact with to put information out regarding
Now, were
her.
they helpful?
The news stations were extremely helpful.
Okay.
Good.
They were right there with us those last couple of weeks, and I think it was because of them that the police actually started doing something.
That's kind of when they started to take it seriously,
Yes.
and you noticed maybe a shift.
Yes, there
Okay.
was a shift.
They probably thought an investigative story is going to be on us for lack of doing our job.
Yes, I think it was August 11th. It'd be August 8th was their first actual search that they did.
Still in 2022.
Still in 2022,
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay.
And then August 11th, I had just gotten back home after taking our medical babies for their therapies at Vanderbilt, and I get a call from the investigator. And he asked, you know, what I was doing. I was like, just getting home. He was like, well, we found her. And I asked him, I said, is she okay? And he said, no, she is deceased.
Wow.
He couldn't tell us anything else other than that.
It's a day and a time you shall never forget for the rest of your natural life.
Oh, absolutely
I'm
not.
assuming.
And this was a phone call?
It was a phone
Not
call.
even in person?
Well,
That's what I was
it
just
was-
thinking. to
Great
myself.
comment, Brian.
Well, he
Great
was in
comment.
Alabama, and I
Oh.
was in Tennessee.
Oh, okay. But
So,
still.
we had about an hour and 30-hour, 45-minute.
But you know, if you think,
distance.
having been a city manager as long and operating cities, it almost would have seen that the Decatur Police Department would have called a counterpart in Shelbyville.
Right.
And they do it in a person
You
contact,
would
not
think.
by the telephone.
Right.
That's, I'm amazed it
Yeah.
wasn't an
Right.
email. You know, send you an email or a text.
Right.
So
Wow.
when you got that phone call, just I know that's
Mm-hmm.
the hard part, but just what was that part like? And I just kind of go back to when we got some really bad news in my family
Mm-hmm.
a few years ago. Like I just remember my wife's reaction and how that was, and just
It was shock,
Were
disbelief.
you alone at home at the time?
The nurse for our medical babies.
okay.
She was there with me.
Thank goodness that
Yeah.
was good.
Yeah, and all the emotions started to flow, but I had to stop because I had a husband that didn't know yet. We had all of our children that did not know yet.
Grandparents.
Grandparents, aunts, uncles, all of these that had helped us and were worried and hurting. You know, none of them knew yet.
man, you know
And-
what? I'm just sitting here thinking, Bill. Not only was it just a phone call, but it was also without her husband being present or anybody else for them to be there with her.
I mean, it's a
Goodness
falling
gracious.
of bricks from a building. I mean, here's a building with the bricks all falling down one by one, each having an impact.
Well,
Wow.
he told me that I had about 2 hours to notify everyone before it would hit social media.
Oh,
So I jump in my van, and my dad comes over to stay at the house to help with the kids.
see the first you called?
Yes. Yeah, because I had to get to my husband.
Yes.
And as I was driving, I called the schools, and I checked out all the kids, and had them come home, and I asked the school to tell them they were not allowed to get on social media.
That was very good thinking by
Yeah.
you to do that.
So none of
At
them
this
were allowed to
point,
use their phones.
That's a good piece of advice to give to everybody who's listening. When tragedy or bad news or what have you, especially children or senior citizens who may have a heart issue and what have you, no social media, keep off.
No, well,
Excellent advice.
it took about 40 minutes, if even that, before someone posted the coroner's van on social media.
And they said 2 or 3 hours, and
They-
it was
they
40
told me I had about
minutes.
2
That
hours.
doesn't surprise me.
No.
And I don't even know if it was that long. Time kind of just, it was a blur. But my daughter-in-law called me, and she said there is a coroner's van posted at the woods behind a Dollar General in Trinity, Alabama. And people are saying that it could be Taylor. And I had to tell her and my son over the phone that it was for her. And then I kept heading to my husband's work, trying to get to him, and I had to call home.
And how were you retaining a sense of, I won't say stability, but how were you retaining just a sense of doing, or was your adrenaline going that quickly because you had to do this, and this, no time to stop and think of your emotional
I think it was,
impact?
yeah, I think it was the adrenaline and just trying to be that rock, trying to be strong, trying to put on that mask that I've got this, you know, that this is all under control. We're going to figure this out, you know.
It seemed like
in
a bad
disbelief,
dream.
disbelief.
Or like a
yeah.
bad dream. And
Oh,
am
it
I going to
was-
wake up and say
Right.
this was just a dream?
Right, definitely. It was just
Or a
kind of
nightmare. I would call it a nightmare.
It was like a shock. I was in a state of shock.
Sure.
I think we all kind of
yeah,
were.
you had to be.
And the fact that you're driving in a state of shock. I mean, you know, I don't want to be looking at every little detail as you go in your story, and I want to give you that full time. But, you know, if we take something like this, a huge, huge tragedy like this, and you take a look at the impact step by step on the individual most affected you, how do you just drive a car and not even be aware of cars around you?
I don't know.
Brian, you were just saying.
It was
I'm
not
sorry.
safe.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that those initial moments, those initial minutes and hours, it's almost like you disassociate from yourself. It's like you're not even, you're on autopilot or something. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I believe it,
Yeah.
truly. So I called home once all the kids had got home, and I told them that Taylor was gone.
Did your dad have support? Well, he was there at
yes,
the house.
the nurse for the
Oh,
babies.
okay,
She
because,
stayed. Yeah, she had become family.
The strength of him and the nurse
Right.
was extraordinarily
Oh, yes.
important. Because what would you say was the age range of the kids at home?
The kids that were at home were, 17 to 9.
Oh, every age is dramatically
Yeah.
affected.
And I will say that between calling them, our daughter-in-law, our son, aunts, grandparents, the cries and the pure heartbreak that you hear over the phone, and you're completely
Of course,
helpless
You can't do it.
to help them, that is something that, I mean, that never goes away. You know, that's something you always carry. And then about the
At
time,
what point do you, and I don't want to create a whole theme, but what point do you pray for God's help right then and there?
I don't. I
Okay.
was angry.
Because
I was angry.
Okay.
And
So actually, in some respect, anger probably gave you greater strength than sadness.
probably it's
In
very
terms
possible.
of getting that behavior under
Yeah.
a strong compass.
And then I remember arriving at my husband's work, and when I walked in, at first he smiled because he thought I was there to surprise him for lunch and have lunch with them. And then he saw my face.
Oh yes. Did fellow employees pick it up very quickly too?
There was some around, yes, and I said they found Taylor, and he said, "Is she okay?" And I could not speak because I knew if I said anything that
Oh,
I
you
was going to
would've
fall
just
apart.
collapsed, yeah.
And he fell apart.
He knew.
He knew.
without
I
you
just
having to say
kind of
anything?
shook my head, and to watch your husband just
Collapse in a sense
fall
of
like
not
that.
physically.
It was no. I literally I thought he was going to hit the floor.
yeah.
I didn't think I was strong enough to help hold him up, and trying to find a way to comfort him. I mean, what do you say?
Mm-hmm.
There's no words of comfort,
That's
and
when, that's
he's
when you hug.
yeah.
You just
And you
one
know
big
what
hug.
I admire so much is that for the mommy in you, you're trying to make everybody else okay, and who's gonna make you okay?
Yeah, I wasn't.
Well, we'll be right back. I mean, and this story has, and we're going to have a specific focus on the ending, how, not the story doesn't have an end, but in terms of how life has gone in the last 2 years subsequent. But we're visiting this morning with Rhonda Barnett, who is telling a life story that hopefully nobody has to go through, and how you deal with it. And we're with Dr. Brian Thomas, who's the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Williamson College, based in Franklin, and also campus in Smyrna. Basically, faith and hope and trust and anger and emotions. We'll be right back.
Renewable natural gas is an incredible resource with the ability to power your home and lifestyle. At Middle Point, we've broken ground on a state-of-the-art facility that will capture natural gas on-site and repurpose it into sustainable pipeline-quality gas. Once operational, this facility will produce enough energy to heat 40,000 homes per year. Learn more about this at middlepointlandfill.com. For public services, we are sustainability in action.
Get set.
The Summer Games record for the women's 100-meter dash is 10.49 seconds. Meanwhile, you got pretty winded walking in from the mailbox this morning. But don't worry, you may not bring home the gold, but that doesn't mean you can't win a little green with instant games from the Tennessee Lottery. So unlock your inner winner today and play instant games for your chance to win gold. Cold hard cash. The Tennessee Lottery. Game-changing fun. Please play responsibly.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control and the law offices of John Day.
I've got pets.
AmeriCare is Rutherford County's #1 choice in pest control, and it's simple to see why. After calling 893-7111, their staff came to my house 8 years ago when I had an insect problem. They looked at the situation, showed me the areas and what they'd recommend to resolve the problem. After treatment and with quarterly checks, I'm bug, critter, and creepy crawly free. Thanks, AmeriCare.
Call the best of the best to get rid of your pets.
AmeriCare, 893-7111.
Let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. 2 plays to enjoy starting this weekend. A Raisin in the Sun at the Center for the Arts in Uptown Murfreesboro. And The Sound of Music at the Springhouse Theater in Smyrna. Also this weekend brings the 34th Annual White Oak Craft Fair. That's all day, Saturday and Sunday, in the fields next to the Arts Center of Cannon County, and that's at 1424 John Bragg Highway in neighboring Woodbury. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday, the Wings of Freedom Fish Fry. That's over at the Smyrna Airport, Saturday, September the 21st. That same Saturday, it's the Greenway Arts Festival, 10 until 4 Saturday, September 21st, at the Old Fort Park. Don't miss that one. Don't throw away Old Glory. Bring your tattered American flag to WGNS and let the girls from BSA Troop 2019 at Trinity United Methodist Church retire it with dignity. Plus, we also recycle Bibles. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
Remnants of Tropical Storm Francine moved to the area this afternoon with a high near 76. And into tonight, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, chance for showers and thunderstorms are likely to continue with the winds gusting up to 20 miles per hour. The meteorologist Jim Marzuk on News Radio WGNS. Right now, it's 72 degrees.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios, MTE Sharing Change has now donated more than $11 million to local nonprofits assisting worthy causes in our community. MTE, serving to to make life better since 1936.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Good morning again. Bill Krause in the second segment of the WGNS Roundtable on a Thursday morning. And we're hearing, I guess I could describe it as a gripping story, but tragically a story that's true. It's not a TV makeup or a radio makeup story. And we're with the mother of the victim, Rhonda Barnett, and Brian Thomas, Dr. Brian Thomas, who's the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Williamson College, based in Franklin with a campus in Smyrna. So, Rhonda, continue the story, and as you go step by step, day by day, after that horrible phone call that you got.
So the next few days, I mean, it really became a blur of just trying to function, trying to get everything together. We were all trying to get the funeral prepared. My husband was, he was honestly just, he didn't know what to do. So he turned to alcohol. Sure. He turned to liquor, and he was struggling really bad. After the funeral, we just continued to fall apart. It was September 5th. One of our other children.
We're almost just observing just a couple of days, a year, 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's a 2 year. I mean, we had 9/11 responding to the tragedy of 2001. We're also responding to the tragedy of 2022.
Yes, it was. But then on September 5th, we had another child that tried to take their own life.
As a result, do you think
just,
of the emotional?
Yeah.
How old was his child?
18.
Close to his natural sister, or
yes,
his sister. Yeah.
And thankfully we were there to intervene. And you know, it just continued to get worse. 4 of those foster children that we were planning to adopt, they reunited with their mom at the end of September, and that was really hard because the 19-month-old, we had him since he was 27 hours old.
Wow!
And they told us that he was adoptable when we took him in, and so our hearts had planned to adopt this whole time. I remember we were at the parking garage at Vanderbilt Hospital when they took him from me, and he just cried and screamed "Mama" and for me, and I just kept. I just kept waving and blowing kisses because I didn't want his last memory to be me turning my back. And I was so angry because I thought, why does she get to get her kids back, but I can't have my kid back?
Well, you far in this 30 minutes, you've had 3 outs in the ball game. Of course, losing your daughter in the way you lost her, having an almost suicide, and September is Suicide Prevention Month, so this is a chance that it's a very, very critical problem, especially among younger people, and then having to give up the baby who you thought was going to be part of yours. Are there any more strikeouts coming?
Yes.
So
okay. I was like Jonah, and I was running from God, and the storms just kept growing, and that's what our life was about like during that time.
Hurricane of life.
Yes.
Almost like a combination of Jonah and Job.
Yeah. Yes. Job was one of my favorites as well.
I've got to say this one. That's a whale of a story. I'm sorry.
Bill's had them all morning.
I
Yes,
know.
it's
I'm sorry, guys.
It's that quick.
In a serious, critical time like this, I don't know if humor is really valid.
But trials continue to mount. Our youngest medical foster daughter, she had a large surgery this was October. November, I almost lost my dad to a quadruple bypass surgery. Then he moved in with us for us to take care of him. We had the first holidays, Taylor's first birthday, and all along I became so fearful of losing another child that I felt that I had to be that mama hen that kept her chicks up under her wings at all times. I couldn't let them out of my sight. I was suffocating,
both physically and emotionally.
Yes,
and emotionally,
and mentally, because
mentally,
I was so depressed and in such a very bad state myself that I couldn't help them work through their pains. I couldn't help them with anything. I was just mounting more on top of it. And my husband, he would get home from work and he would drive to the back field and he would drink until bedtime, and then he would come in.
How was he doing at work? Was he able to maintain his?
He did. He did maintain his job. Yes, he may not have been functioning
maybe a
very
distraction.
well.
Maybe it was a
Yes.
distraction.
And putting the energy into an alternative.
But he had also struggled with alcoholism for like 30 years.
Oh,
on
so
and
it
off.
wasn't a
So,
new
but
phenomenon.
what was new is the everyday thing. Prior, it was just a few times a week or something like that. This was totally different, and the doctor also had him on Xanax, which
That's not a good combination.
which he was taking not as he should. But everything just continued to mount. It became March or February, and I was like, I can't
You're
take
in
this anymore.
2023
I'm
now.
at 2023, yes. I was like, I can't take this anymore. I mean, I'm just at my breaking point. I had divorce papers ready. I told my husband, I was like, I'm done. I can't. I got to try to find a way to escape this pain.
Did you ever have a full night's sleep?
No.
Were you up much
No.
of the night thinking?
Yes, my mind would not shut
Never
off.
stop.
Right. So come March of 23, my husband decides he's ready for change, and he enters S2L recovery, Spring to Life recovery.
Yeah, and let me give a shout out real quickly to
Yes.
Adam Comer, the CEO over at S2L Recovery. He actually he led our Student Veritas event this past Tuesday, did a great job, and we're just proud partners, Williamson College and S2L Recovery. Just wanted to throw that out there.
No, definitely, because I will tell you, S2L, if my husband had not made that choice to go there, then our family, I don't
Totally
know.
broke up.
Yeah, because I was so angry at God that I was still making, no one knew, because I would put on my mask every day. We used social media to post pictures of smiling and everything else. Everybody thought we had it together. I looked like a Christian. I showed up for church. I took my kids to church. However, when I went to church, I wasn't listening. I was making my grocery list. I was meal planning. I was so angry at God at that time that I was doing everything I possibly could to not hear what the pastor was saying. I didn't pray. I didn't want to pray, if I'm being honest. I was so angry and hurting so much that I was like, why would I pray? God could have stopped all this stuff if he had wanted. Why would he not?
Yeah, let me jump in right there.
Sure,
So
please.
One thing that I regret about when we got the news about our toddler having cancer was I actually chose to use alcohol myself to deal and cope with that through some of that time. And one thing that the big regret was I decided to isolate. There were people reaching out to me. There were people saying, Brian, come to church, get out of bed, go out to lunch. I was like, no, quit calling, quit texting. I don't want to see anybody. Y'all can't relate to me. Y'all don't know what I'm going through. And so just for you still being at church, and just even if you were making grocery lists, just for you to have that willpower, just to know that you still needed to be there. I wish that I would have done that differently.
I don't know, if I'm being honest, if it was the willpower of me knowing that we needed to be there,
And willpower might have been the
or if
wrong
it was
word.
what the world would see. You know, I was really concerned that the world saw, everyone
Maybe
around
it
me
was-
saw
maybe it
that I
was
had
part
it
of a
together.
God's
you
direction.
Right.
kind of wanted them to think that you had it together.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
You didn't
I
want to let
wouldn't reach out-
anybody
no.
in.
No, I didn't
Guard
want.
was up.
Yeah, I didn't want anyone to know about my husband drinking. I didn't want them to know that we were hurting. I didn't want them to know that inside our home, our very close relationship with our children had become so, I don't even know the word. It was yelling and
Threatened would be.
yeah, it was yelling and screaming. My children hated me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would dread coming home to my family because it was so bad.
Chaos.
Yes,
And where
it
was their emotional support? Who was giving them emotional support?
No one. Because I had taught them to put your mask on. Put your smile on. You're okay. Because that's what I was teaching them to show what the world wants you to be. You know what I mean? To put on this facade that everything is okay. To carry your front well. And I had been teaching the kids this throughout this period. That, you know, hide your brokenness. You know, don't
At
keep
this
it
point,
concealed.
going back to the original cause or primary cause, was there anything more to try to get open up the investigation?
Yeah.
They told you it was a suicide. You did
Right.
not believe it was a
Oh, no.
suicide.
No, it wasn't.
Did they open it up in terms of homicide? What was the ex-husband or the potential ex-husband of your daughter doing all through this process and period of time?
He had our grandson, and he was taking really good care of our grandson.
Grandson was, under the circumstances, doing all right?
Yes, I don't really
Missing his
think
mother,
during.
of course, but-
Yes.
Still 3 years old, right?
Yes, 3 years old. So like during the time that she was missing and everything,
Yeah.
I don't think he wasn't really exposed to like what was actually
Knew exactly
happening.
what was
Did he
going
right.
have
on,
supportive
yeah.
grandparents
Um,
besides you? Did he have support?
Yes.
on
Oh yeah.
his,
He has
father's side?
Yes, and like there's tons of support throughout the family
Okay.
for him. Going back to when Alan entered this Spring to Life S2L.
Your husband?
That's when, yes, my husband. That's when things were able to change a little bit. I was relieved when he first went in because that was one less thing that I had to worry about. But I still wasn't turning to God.
Yeah.
I was still running. I was still angry. I was still blaming God for everything. So, of course, trials continued. My daughter-in-law was pregnant with her fourth baby, and she developed cholestasis of pregnancy and had to be hospitalized. So there are 3 grandchildren that were, 2, 1, and 11 months.
Oh.
They came to stay with me for about 3 weeks.
At this point, you no longer had foster children?
No,
at
I
home?
still had one that we
okay.
were planning to
Plus
adopt.
your-
Yes.
Plus your family
Yeah.
numbers were how many?
Oh, we still had 5 children at home. Yes.
I'm losing count.
Yeah.
so-
So at this time there was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids in the house with just me, and it was crazy. But then it came during that period, the time for the final on the adoption for our foster daughter, and that because we had been planning to adopt her too. We all loved her, adored her, but we were not in a place at that point. I felt like a failure of a mother, a failure of a wife, a failure in every relationship that I was in.
Oh, look at what you were carrying on your shoulders. My
Yeah.
gosh.
That we had to let her go.
I'm just glad that I'm sitting right here beside you right now. Honestly, I mean,
yeah.
and there's probably so much more that you're not even going to
Oh,
get
yes.
to today.
Oh, there's not.
But this is just this is inspiring, and I just want to tell you that you're brave to do this.
Well, thank you.
Well, it's inspiring beyond the fact of sharing a horrible, horrible story. It's the fact that if anybody out there says, this is a bad hair day, or this is a bad day that somebody cut me off on Church Street, this is a bad day that the dog was barking all night, hey, if you want to know about having issues and problems, welcome to this morning's Roundtable.
So she left on my son's birthday.
How old?
She was 2.
Okay.
Yeah, she was.
Had you had her from the time of an
We
infant?
had her for a little over a year.
Okay.
She was
Yeah. I
amazing.
understand.
And then I had to say no,
Oh,
and so that was
yes,
that was another hard hit.
loss in so many different ways.
Yeah, and that hurt all the children even more too,
Oh.
because we were all so close. You know, we all loved her so much, I felt like the children really became angry, definitely angrier with me
Because you didn't keep her.
because I had
Or
to let her
couldn't
go.
keep her,
Yeah.
And I mean, I could have went ahead and followed through with the
sure.
divorce from Alan. I could have went ahead and adopted her on my own. You know, that was one thing I even looked at. But there was God tugging, saying, "Hey, you can't.
Yeah.
You need to stop."
Yeah.
You know, there was that back of it. You know, we hear these, our conscience talking to us. Well, that was God saying, "Don't. You need to hold
so
up.
God
you need to
was
be
in
still."
the picture,
Oh,
whether you accepted it or not.
oh yeah. It's only Him that we were there when our
Very
other child
persistent.
tried to, to harm himself. I mean, it was only God that kept His hand on us, even though I was completely rebelling against Him. He had His hand on us the entire time.
So while Alan was in S2L, were you able to talk with him every now and then and check in and get updates, or was that just kind of because I know they've got 2 phases? They've got a 42 and an 84-day phase.
So
there.
he was in the first phase still, the
Okay.
first 42 days. There was the blackout week, and then I had 2 weeks of we would go see him on visits, and then the catapult services they have here in Murfreesboro at Life Point, which are amazing.
Life Point Riverdale.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, those services are amazing.
I've attended. They are amazing.
Yes. We would go see him then, and we would go on Wednesday nights to wherever they were at church. At the time, it was Pleasant View Baptist in Woodbury. And so we would join him and see him on visits on Sundays and stuff. But I was so bitter to the fact that God was working with him and I could start seeing change with him. I was bitter to the fact that he was finding peace with everything. and I could not. So we actually stopped contact again. And so the whole time, like during the period of Riley, our foster daughter, leaving and everything, her leaving, we weren't having contact at that time because I was so
You know, it's
angry with
almost
him.
like during this storm, it's almost like he got to go on a little vacation.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to call it a rehabilitation vacation,
went to
but you know
camp.
what I'm saying? He went to camp,
Yeah.
and you're at home. He's getting help and treatment
Yes.
from all these people, support system, and you're at home.
Exactly. Just
But
taking
you
the
know,
punches.
the analogy of this, as you've been talking this morning, is like a tornado. And you were the center of the tornado. Whether you experienced the calmness of the center of the tornado, it gave you the strength to be able to have the family survive. Survivorship of what you had left was so key. So you were that center, in the center of the tornado, that the exterior of the tornado is destroying, killing, knocking down, and so forth. But there you were as the center. That may have been God's gift.
Well, I didn't think that I should be the center or anything like that, because on April 21st, I was getting ready for work that day.
What, 2023?
Yep.
And you were working all this time?
Yes, I work I'm a pediatric nurse.
Oh, so all this time, we haven't even covered that. You were trying to maintain a survivor of individuals in a unit of a family, and still
Yes.
helping other people through pediatric nursing.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And I love working in pediatrics. I love working with people in general.
It shows.
So that morning, I put my mask on. I went in. I carried on like I was this happy, still spunky self, and no one knew I left work. And my
It's like
son,
you were flipping a switch
Oh, yeah,
every day,
absolutely.
turning it on and off.
Yep, and my son, he had just turned 18, and he was getting his first tattoo.
Wow.
Yes, that was the first. He was so excited. So I left work to meet them at the tattoo parlor because I wanted to make sure, they did, the mother hen.
Yeah.
Is everything
What are you
clean,
getting?
sanitized?
Yeah,
Are you
right.
just opening that?
Yeah.
I had to be there. But as we finished the tattoo, I gave him a hug and a kiss and told him how much I loved him, and told him to make sure that his brothers and sisters knew how much I loved them all too, because I just loved them. Well, I got my vehicle, and that night I planned to end my life.
Oh.
Because I could not take
well,
it anymore.
The rubber band broke.
Yeah.
I mean, how long can you
Yeah.
stretch your rubber band and suddenly snap?
And I was at that point, and nobody knew because I was so good at hiding it, so good at covering it up. And I remember
And there's nobody to just release it to
No.
talk to somebody, and
No.
you just release it all out of your heart and out of
no,
your
because
brain.
those that were closest to us had basically turned their back on us as the alcohol and everything just continued. We continued to spiral.
They didn't know how to handle it.
Right.
And
so,
there's something to be said too, like you had probably had thoughts about doing it, and then it went from having those thoughts to I'm gonna do it.
well, I was going home that night for the first time in my life to an empty house with no husband, no kids, no foster children. I was going to be completely alone, and I had never experienced that, and it was unbearable.
Oh, I can
So I pulled
imagine.
into the driveway, and I was like, okay, where do I need to do this? I don't want the kids to find me because they would be the first ones home. But then I didn't want to do it elsewhere and start a search.
And repeat the whole case.
And repeat the whole thing. I was trying to just make it as easy on them, and I'm like, well, I need a clean house first.
We'll be right back for the final, and the final point is, okay, we've covered 2 years. Where are we now and where are we tomorrow? That's how we're going to cover after the break. We're with Rhonda Barnett, who just is telling a gripping story that has so many messages for every one of us to. I mean, I hope after this you go hug your children, you go hug your spouse, go hug your mother and father, go hug a stranger down the street, come into WGNS and hug Brian, give him a big hug and so forth. We'll be right back after Rhonda Barnett and Dr. Brian Thomas.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now.
800-488-2594.
Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call
800-488-2594. That's 800-488-2594.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
Are you tired of feeling like just another number with your insurance provider? At Rayburn Insurance Agency in Smyrna, Agent Rick Hall prides himself on offering personalized service that puts you first. Every client's needs are unique. From personal home and auto coverage to tailored business insurance, Rick Hall's got you covered. Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance Agency in Smyrna, where you're more than just a policy number. You're a neighbor.
This is Kim Dunaway from Sunshine Nutrition Center. You hear me on Monday mornings at 7:20 talking about how to lead a healthier lifestyle. We carry supplements, personal care, and grocery items at both our Murfreesboro and Smyrna locations, family owned and operated since 1989.
At Bud's Tire Pros, we sell all major brands of tires, and we invite you to stop by today for that next set of tires. Or maybe you need us to check out your vehicle before you head out of town. We offer everything from brakes to batteries, alignments, and more. No appointments necessary, just stop on by.
I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstirepros.tn.com.
You know the value of good neighbor, someone you can trust, someone who looks out for you. And when it comes to Medicare, it's good to have someone on your side. That's where Senior Financial Group comes in. We're Tennesseans, just like you, and we've partnered with United Healthcare, a trusted name in health insurance. Together, we'll guide you through your Medicare options. We will compare plans, answer your questions, and ensure you get the most of your Medicare benefits with United Healthcare. Don't navigate Medicare alone. Call Senior Financial Group at 800-690-0251 or visit sfgmedicare.com for a free plan review today.
LaGreen's Masonry is a local family business. They build quality brick mailboxes. LaGreen's Masonry has over 19 years experience, and they're A+ rated by the BBB. Check their website, lagreensmasonry.com.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
This is Bill Krause in the final segment of the Thursday morning roundtable on WGNS. And we've had I don't know about you folks, but both Dr. Thomas and I have been just sitting here with this message from Rhonda. And it is just unbelievable. In the remaining moments, Rhonda, were we today, and what if other people horribly have to go through similar experiences? You just had a multitude of experiences that has resulted from this. What should they do? What should they do? And we're going to have you back in a few months as a retrospect to see where we're going. So it's all yours for the remaining time, Rhonda.
Okay. So, well, that night, like I said, I was at that end. Turned on Christian music, and pretty soon my singing along with the songs became worshiping. And that night, God lifted me from that pit that I was in. And I learned what true surrender really was, as I was handing him over everything that I was carrying, and I could physically feel him lift those burdens from my shoulder. It was such an amazing feeling.
Wow.
And then as the days and weeks that followed, as I just continued to surrender and continue over and over, every time I would pick it back up, I would give it back to him like, God, I can't carry this, you take it. He continued to begin to restore my relationship with my husband. I began to want to be around him. I began to love him in a way that I had never loved him before, and the relationship with our children God began working there. Yes. And
Amen.
And he has taken everything that was so broken in our life, everything that I had tried to fix, that I couldn't fix, everything I tried to control, and he took all of that and he has turned it into such a beautiful blessing. All of our children, one of my son that was on a very wild path, he serves in the military at Fort Bragg, and he has a Bible ministry where he hands out Bibles to all the new soldiers that come in. Our daughters are heading in career paths that are going to allow them to share Christ with others and to pray with others. God has had his hand on every single one of us. And that's why I can't say this is my testimony. This is our testimony, because he has done so much with us as a group to allow us to reach out to other people and work with other people. And it's amazing what God does when you stop running and you be still and you just surrender and give it to him.
Walking toward him rather than running away.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
And so it sounds like this turn started with worship.
It did. It did. Worship is that.
I would think prayer, but no, it's like, no, you it just come upon you.
Yes.
Music, worship, and then
Yeah.
slowly.
Worship is, that's.
Before we adjourn, I want you to do it twice, not once. I want you to give a email address, because quite frankly, I think there are churches, there are groups, there are rehabilitation, there's people who should be hearing this message from you, not only throughout Rutherford County, but this message should be just part of a reaffirmation of the world, life, prayer, and faith. So what's a good email? I'm not going to have you give your phone number. I say who these people calling, but give a good email twice, very slowly. So folks, if you want to reach out, if you're with an organization, you're with a church, and what have you, I can't think of a better person for Rhonda to be with you.
Okay, so it's Rhonda Barnett 40 at gmail.com, and that's Rhonda RHONDA Barnett BARNETT 40 at gmail.com.
One more time, because if somebody may be rushing to get that scratch of paper and that pen.
Okay, so it's Rhonda Barnett 40 at gmail.com. RHONDA BARNETT 40 at gmail.com.
And you're finishing up your degree at Williamson College, and you want to totally be in the nursing, helping others. How are all the children doing?
They're all doing wonderful. Some of the younger ones are starting dual enrollment at Williamson as well.
I think I hopefully will have one of them or two of them along the way.
God has really transformed all of our children. Oh, my husband, y'all, it's amazing. He is not the same person. He works for the S2L ministry now. S2L has become our brothers. They have become family, and my husband serves there, and the whole ministry is just amazing. So if someone who is struggling, that is definitely, that was a pivotal point in our life that they pointed us to Christ.
Yeah.
They pointed me to Christ.
It's truly a Christ-centered approach to addiction recovery.
Yes, it is.
Is the investigation dead?
Yes.
So they closed it. It's not a cold case. And they ruled it suicide, despite the fact that deep in your heart, your brain, your logic, you still consider it was a homicide.
Yes. One thing that gives us peace is that God is a God of justice.
Amen.
And even though that we will not see it, we know that it will happen.
You may feel it, so it may be coming along.
Right. But I pray for that. I pray for anyone who was involved. I pray for them, and that was a very hard part for me to get to, was to pray for that person. But I pray for them to learn who Christ is and to form a relationship with him.
September 12th, 2024. How are you today?
Yeah. Love life. Love sharing what has happened in our life with others. I love sharing the brokenness that I experienced and what God has done with it. And
she's still a very busy woman.
Yes.
And we're going to make her busier, because she's got a message to share. And I'm going to be closing on this, because I can always recall, and I don't want to embarrass you, but I always recall when the first day, second day of public speaking class, you were nervous.
Yes.
And you said, oh my gosh. And I had you clap your hands and say, wow, to build you the adrenaline and the confidence. So you have the confidence. You have done a gorgeous job on Roundtable this morning.
I second that.
And I'll third it along.
I have Godfidence.
Godfidence.
Oh my God.
I have Godfidence.
That just beat all I've done in the last 60 minutes. Thank you so much, Rhonda Barnett. And thank you so much, my friend, Byron Thomas from Williamson College. We will have a checking up on you probably around Christmas, because normally when people go through tragedy, Christmas is the worst time because it just suddenly is a family time that's got a big hole in it. We want to hear some of them, so we'll be setting something up. Again, thank you very much. We'll see you next week with Ronnie Martin coming here from the Pinnacle Bank, telling us about finance and interest rates. Bye.